Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and welcome to our spoiler breakdown review, whatever you want to call it. But we are going to be talking it. Welcome to Derry. All 8 episodes have premiered. We got to see this a little bit early, so we're recording this here on Tuesday, so before the last episode drops. So it's going to be exciting for us, I think, to see how people react to the final couple of moments of this one. So I gotta say, this was something we saw the first 5 episodes of. We posted a review and we were very positive. But like most people, I think there was a little bit of trepidation coming out of episode 6. And after seeing episode 8 and being here, full spoilers, I can say I think they still pulled it off. Luke, how are you feeling?
I am right there with you, Dylan. This one, to be honest, I mean, we talked about it on the channel. Before we ever saw anything really from it, Welcome to Derry, it was kind of, do we need this? Is this something that we were clamoring for, especially after the sour taste of Chapter 2? And then we got the trailer and we're like, a little bit more positive, but hopefully we don't get into just the same rhythm that we've seen with those past 2 films. And I think they really did offer something that was similar, but just different enough to keep us interested to extend the lore that we've seen with Pennywise and to really just justify its own existence. And I'll say those first 5 episodes were strong, had us on board. The question mark was, are they going to be able to see this one through? And yes, 6 did get a little hairy for a second, but I think they brought us back with a really strong episode 7. And they rounded us out with something that, honestly, I can't wait to see what's next for It Welcome to Derry.
Yeah, no, me too. I mean, this was one of those things where I had a bit of a different experience with this, considering I'm notoriously on this channel terrible with keeping up with TV shows. So I actually got 2 episodes behind. So I've been saying that I think, just based off of people's reactions, and we said this in our initial review, that I think that this is a series that benefits from binge watching. There are series that do fine week to week, but like, this is a series that I think the story is so like straight focused, well told, it's well paced, that it really does just feel like an 8-hour movie. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those where I'm just kind of sitting there going episode by episode. I don't necessarily feel like I need a break. And I feel like that might be why we've seen a little bit of pushback from fans as far as episodes 5 and 6 go, because I think those are really the transitioning episodes of the season. I would say, of the series, they might be the weakest of the series, but that's still not bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And I watched episode 6. We were getting these basically a week early before the episodes air. And I saw 6 just a couple days before episode 7 aired. And I was a little sour on that because I liked some of where the story was going, but the added texture, the connective tissue that we were getting in episode 6, I was like, depending on how deep they dive into this could really take a downturn and just really not deliver by the time we get to the end of the season. But I really do enjoy the kind of how we dabble into the Bob Gray stuff, where we don't overstay our welcome. We don't get an over explanation of anything, but we do get to see that little bit of a period piece to see how Pennywise got his persona, just ripping it off from Bob Gray. And I love, we're getting into Bill Skarsgård's performance here, I'm sure, at some point, but I loved how we presented that in a different manner, where it's like, it's Bill Skarsgård playing Pennywise, but also playing Bob Gray, and it had this kind of less pristine feel to it when he was Bob Gray as opposed to Pennywise, where he's kind of perfected this dancing clown performance. And I really enjoyed seeing that dichotomy between it and just what Bill Skarsgård was able to bring to the character.
Yeah, I think that's one of the strongest moments, probably, and that's episode 7, and that's like one of those things where it's like that episode. I mean, right now, currently where we sit, everybody's still fawning over it. It's such a very strong episode, such an impactful episode. I mean, the black spot in and of itself is something that everybody has wanted to see, that story, or at least see some depiction of it. And we really thought with the Andy Muschietti thing there was going to be a lot of opportunity for that in the movies, but we saw that they remained relatively faithful to the structure of the original book, which, I don't discredit them for doing that. That makes sense. And yeah, we were a little trepidatious about this, but I think the fact that we get to witness such a pivotal event in Derry, one of many that I hope we get to see, it's something that I just feel like this is where we talk about the show needing to justify itself, is stuff like this. And on top of that, they give us some of the best human characters, or I guess adult characters, that we've had thus far in the Pennywise universe. Stephen King stuff with all this. It's like these adults are actually people we enjoy rooting for or hating. They are actually people, as to where they've always kind of fumbled that in any adaptation across the board when it comes to the story of it.
It's always been, when you look at what we're familiar with the actual theatrical releases of the 1990 miniseries, where we have that core group of kids, and then we do that time jump where they're adults and they come back to Derry and they take on Pennywise. So it's always been kind of what we're used to in this, and they really haven't taken any advantage of opening up any more adult characters beyond that. We've had the side characters, we've had them kind of dabble a little bit, but we never really got into any sort of new adult characters. And I think that's where Welcome to Derry certainly thrives. I love the time period, I love the social issues that we're dealing with, but I love the cast of characters that we've created. It would have been very easy to just kind of do in what we're used to with Welcome to Derry, where it's primarily a white cast. But I like that we went the African American, where we're dealing with more black issues and what we're getting into and how that is impactful with the story. I know that's probably going to be interesting.
Someone's gonna say woke shit in the comments. No, I'm kidding.
But like from a storytelling perspective and what the characters are going to go through, especially dealing with the black spot incident and how intense they were able to make that, and what we're really dealing with these characters, brought something new. It brought such a fresh dynamic, and I think that's where this property is going to thrive, in getting this mini series of these 8 episodes of telling a different story, because I think this first season here is one of the best tellings, I think, from across the board, from what we get with Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise, our characters, and just the intensity of everything. It just feels new, it feels fresh, and I'm excited for the next season.
Absolutely. I think one of my highlights before, we're going to obviously save Bill Skarsgård and Pennywise. We've been kind of dropping little hints, but he's incredible in this. But I do want to highlight a couple of the human cast, I should say, before we dive into all that, because there were a few standouts to me. The biggest one probably being Chris Chalk as Dick Halloran. I didn't know that this character was going to be such a huge piece to this show. Like, I stayed away from a lot of the marketing, admittedly, and I know that he's referenced in the book, having been witness to the black spot and everything, but it's one of those things where it's like I didn't know that they were going to use him as a character as much as they did, and it really adds another level of watching this character now when you see him in The Shining and Doctor Sleep, and just like, having this now as a piece to that, and being able to see Dick Halloran spend relatively about 7 hours with us, 7 of the 8 hours just hanging out and helping us solve mysteries in Derry, and really getting to see his shine and how it's kind of weaponized and the torment that comes along with it. One of my favorite things that they did in this is, I believe it's the last episode, or it's the second to last episode. It's when I think it is this last episode, when he's talking to Leroy, and he's basically just talking about his grandmother giving him this trick to lock everything in a box. And I just had flashes of The Shining, flashes of Doctor Sleep, all of it, and I just was like, this is perfection. I love the way this feels right now. What a complete character Dick Halloran is, and just somebody that anytime he's incorporated into a Stephen King property correctly or properly, I'm there for it, and they aced him here.
I was so excited to see how much this character got to spread his wings, and how much texture we got to the Dick Halloran character, because I mean, Stephen King, let's face it, he's got so many different books out there, so many different established properties, that it's very easy to just do a wink and a nod. How many times has Christine showed up? Just because it's fun for Stephen King and horror fans. Where Dick Halloran, the character never felt like gratuitous, like we're just going to throw him in there, shoehorn the character in there to show you a familiar face. the idea of Dick Hallorann having the shine and what that brings versus Pennywise is such an interesting dynamic, and I think they really do take advantage of it. Again, it's able to distinguish it Welcome to Derry with that property and say we're doing something different. Yes, we're bringing in a familiar face, but we're gonna add so much extra layers to this character and really show he's a formidable opponent to Pennywise. I think one of my favorite instances as we get into episode 8 is where Dick Hallorann's able to stop Pennywise right in his tracks. And I love that we see this vulnerable version of Pennywise where he doesn't know exactly what's going on. He's being slapped and he doesn't know where he's at. And I love that kind of little break that when we move Dick Hallorann just a second, and then the cabin kind of shakes, and we get to see his hand, and then Pennywise starts figuring it out, and we're back into that threat. But I love seeing him kind of um, falter for a second and not know exactly what's going on. Where it's like I love to see these two face off. I think it was such a great matchup, and it really adds something different to the lore of it, and really just establishes Welcome to Derry as its own thing.
Yeah, and I mean, still, even with it feeling like its own thing and feeling like it's standing on its own 2 feet and just using the source material as just like I just look at this now as it just standing right next to it. It's that well done. Like it's really well presented, really well paced and well thought out, and that's really nice to see as people, especially the two of us, being very critical of especially it chapter 2. We were very open about that in our spoiler free review, but those of you who haven't seen it, we are not big fans of chapter 2. I mean, I am actually a fan of chapter 1. Luke has his gripes with that one as well. So it's kind of a big deal that Welcome to Derry has kind of won us over so heavily because again, I think you said it in one of our videos that we've recorded about this, that just having a mini series or even just a season by season story focus when it comes to Stephen King properties seems to be where they thrive. And I think they absolutely nailed it here. And yes, some of the Andy Muschietti's CGI, especially in those middle episodes. Where was the cemetery one? Where
I think that was episode 3. Was
yeah,
like
that okay, that one, yeah, it's
pretty
inexcusable.
bad.
It's rough, but I gotta say, by the end, when you talk about like Dick Hallorann like freezing Pennywise and all the transitions and them being in that kind of otherworldly area, that space, and watching his face melt, like I think they pulled it off, man. I gotta say, I don't have very many complaints as far as the CG goes or any of the presentation, and I think it is, in my opinion, of the 3 properties with this version of Pennywise, I think it's the best climax. I think it's the best third act of watching them fight. I even like it more than the kids.
I think so. I think it just feels fresh. It feels like we didn't know where it was going to go. Even when we got into chapter 1 and chapter 2 to go see those theatrical releases, we kind of knew more so from a reference point of maybe where they were going to go with that story and what to expect. But going into Welcome to Derry, it was really a fresh slate where we didn't know what they were going to exactly do with the 8 episodes and how much source material they were going to pull. It really just felt like the unknown. And that's why I think it was a big question mark for us, a big hesitation to say, is this going to be a rehash or is it going to do something different? And I think it succeeds into feeling new, rejuvenating my love for it because, like you said, I had my issues with chapter 1, chapter 2 did not hit at all. And I was really checked out here, but I am in agreement where it does feel like the stakes are very high for the end because I didn't know what existed beyond the horizon of the instance that we're dealing with in terms of what the character arcs are going to look like, who's going to be alive, who's not going to be alive. I know we have some texture to the town of Derry, little later on in terms of what we're going to see, like with Richie and the Losers Club in general, but I didn't really know where this was going to go, but it kept me interested to the very end. I really did feel invested in this, and I think they presented a lot of great action. Like you said, so yeah, some of those earlier episodes have some gag-inducing CGI, but I think it all worked for the final episode. Nothing was distracting to me, and I think the story is always the through line here with the story has always been very strong. So even I mentioned in our first review of those first 5 episodes where it's like, yeah, some of the CGI is pretty bad, but I think the story is intriguing enough to keep my interest. And I certainly saw by the end of it, it was like, okay, we're really ending strong. It didn't end with a period. It ended with an exclamation point, as I like to say.
Yeah, and I gotta say that's across the board for like everybody here because I think everybody towards the end of the series has had their moments to shine, but even then in the final episode they managed to bring our core groups together and have everybody crisscross in a very believable and what feels like a natural way. It doesn't feel like we've shoehorned anything necessarily. And I got to say the third, or the I guess the third act, or the final act of the series here, where it's just Pennywise showing up at their school and putting on the dancing clown performance, and just how
And
this
making
is
the
going to be.
principal into a puppet or whatever the hell it was. I was like,
Yeah,
what
dude.
the fuck is this?
It's like, yeah, it's like we know that they are. I think in recent memory, it chapter one with obviously the opening of that film being one that people, I think the last time, well, since then we've only had really Art the Clown with Terrifier 3 to really have the uproar of that. But like we got to remember, they don't mess around. They kill kids in the show, and they show us that at the beginning of the series too, which again, I got to give them props for that. That's incredible that they just went full bore into, yeah, we're just going to kill these kids that you've spent the whole episode establishing our new losers club. But here, yeah, they really just they show you shocking imagery after shocking imagery in the third act. They don't hold back. There's a lot of messed up shit. Do I have face on my face after eating that girl in 7? It's like, Jesus, like he is sinister, he's evil. I mean, Pennywise in this, Bill Skarsgård, he gets so much room to live and grow, and it's really, really impressive that they were able to make this happen.
Absolutely, and yeah, that's you bring up Bill Skarsgård, and I guess we can get into his performance, where it's like, my gosh, I think watching it, Welcome to Derry, after watching Bill Skarsgård performance in here, I'm really sold on him as Pennywise. Tim Curry's always been my Pennywise, and he will always continue to be my Pennywise. He just is so terrifying, I think, from a design perspective and from a performance perspective. But certainly, walking out of it, Welcome to Derry, I'm way more positive on Bill Skarsgård performance. It's never been weak, but sometimes I always felt like maybe he was trying a little too hard to be scary. Whereas in this one, the presentation, I know I had seen some chatter online when we were going through these episodes that everyone had to wait till episode 5 to get to Pennywise showing up, and I loved the way they did that. They made us work for it. They opened up the town, and he feels big by the time he makes his appearance in this.
It's huge. It's important. I think we gave a lot of compliments to that, but again, I think we are also speaking from, in a lot of ways, a compromised experience when it comes to those first 5 episodes, because we did get to kind of watch them in succession, or at least closely together, even if we broke them up night by night. It's like, I think that a lot of people maybe felt like it was too long, because I've seen criticism towards that, and I can't blame them. But all I can really suggest is watch this again, then, like all the way through in a couple of weeks or a few months after, and just let that story sink in, because you're right. By the time we get Pennywise, it feels so natural. It feels so like we've primed it, we've prepped it, we're ready, it's here. I was like excited that we weren't getting him in the first 2-3 episodes. We were just getting forms or apparitions. It's like, I like that. It builds the tension and it works, but maybe week to week it might be a little too long.
And I think maybe it just depends on what you're looking for coming into this series, where Dylan and I had talked about it, and we are very hopeful that they were just going to open up the town of Derry, make it feel off, make Pennywise feel like this cancer just growing on the town of Derry, where I think some people, especially if you're a big fan of chapter 1 and chapter 2 and Bill Skarsgård performance, you were probably looking for just a Bill Skarsgård showcase of what we had seen in those 2 films. And unfortunately, they were kind of just, well, unfortunately, depending on what you're looking for, they were going to wait. And I remember as I was going through those first episodes thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so glad we haven't seen Pennywise yet. And it's just kind of this looming specter of what we're when we finally see him. It's so gratifying to actually see him on the screen. And then his presence in episode 7 primarily is like, oh my gosh, this is really terrifying.
He's really fucking scary in these last 2 episodes. Like, he's definitely meaner. And it's weird to say that because he seemed so evil in that first but it almost makes him look sluggish in the first one, and just almost like he's so used to winning by that point that like this he seems very like hell-bent on making everybody who wrongs him in this series pay. Like, he goes around like the entire town is taken over, guys. Like, the stakes are huge, and surprisingly, I think it works, because usually I hate stuff like that when it gets so big with something that I think needs to be so focused. And they actually pulled it off here. Again, that's why I give mad props to the third act of this little series, because it's like I usually feel like they lose me, especially with the character of Pennywise, by the time we get to the big crescendo.
And I think, those episodes are certainly strong from the very start before we even get Pennywise. But once we do get Pennywise, it does feel like the series does kick into another gear to say, oh, here's our main villain. This is what everyone came for. And they make great use of them. Like you said, those last two episodes feels like such a genuine, terrifying villain where it's like we don't know what's going to happen. And I love that aspect of it. And as we kind of get into some texture, we mentioned, he brings up Richie and Margaret being the father or the the mother of Richie, and knowing that Richie and the Losers Club is going to be his downfall. I'm curious if watching those first two films, in terms of his hesitation or anything like that of his performance, I would doubt that it would be brought up that early on. But do you look at that through a different lens to say he knows that these kids are going to be his downfall eventually? So does it feel like a different performance because he's supposed to? He already knows the threat. He knows his end game. Whether he says it's a death or a birth, he never knows, because that's how Pennywise views time. And I like that aspect of it as well, where we're adding extra lore, I think, that hasn't really been established, certainly not on screen, of what Pennywise goes through and how he views things. Because I love getting into the head of Pennywise, which we don't get in that often.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably one of the biggest takeaways from this is like, I honestly look at this as them having the potential. They say they have 3 seasons in mind to go back further and further. In my head, I think that this is all, maybe depending on how this worked out. That's why they only hinted towards this, but I could see them making a bigger play of almost reinventing Pennywise in a sense to have, and I know everybody's going to just say, oh, they're going to end game everything. No, where it's like, since he is this cosmic deity and can kind of, like time doesn't necessarily work the same for him, who's to say that, he knew about his downfall at that time? Maybe this is just the second go around for this version of Pennywise. We're watching him now experience things he already experienced with that knowledge and what that's going to do. It's like you can really play with this in any way. And like you said, getting into Pennywise's head and how he actually works much deeper in a much more respectful and cohesive way than I ever thought they ever could have pulled off. I mean it when I say that, like, I was half-heartedly like disappointed that it was like, oh man, we're getting Andy Muschietti and everybody back. I'm like, we need some new voices here, because I was not a fan of chapter 2, but they really showed up for this, and in a lot of ways, like Luke said earlier, just I'm excited to be an It fan again and a Pennywise fan.
Certainly. And I think, they really came packing the story and what they wanted to tell. This did not feel like, hey, we're just trying to get, there's a little bit of gas left in the tank, so let's get as much mileage out of this as we can. It really did feel like they wanted to reinvigorate the franchise and tell a different kind of story, which, there's some strong similarities, but again, it feels just different enough that we're going to be talking about this, and it stands on its own 2 feet of certainly the imagery that they've done. One of the things I just want to bring up very briefly is I was mentioned on the Sunday Scaries where I loved at the end of episode 7 where Pennywise was going back to sleep and he was just dunked in a pool of blood, and then he comes back out and it's like from his mouth down, he's just soaked in blood. I loved that imagery of him. We never seen anything like that, and I loved that aspect of it.
They just kept it for the rest
Yep.
of the season.
It was like, I love that they committed to that and kind of gave us just a little bit, again, where I say it's similar, but just different enough. And it does put its own creative stamp on there, where it's like you have that throughout this series of little sprinkles of things that you're going to say, oh, I like this and I like that. And I think that's what makes this season 1 here really strong.
Yeah, I can comfortably say that sitting here at the end of Welcome to Derry, this is a recommend for me. I definitely want people who were like us that maybe soured on those first 2 films, give this a shot. I think that this has a lot to offer. As far as King stuff goes in recent memory, this is also really strong. Again, I put this up there with things like Dr. Sleep right now, with just the level of a detail and excitement and just like cohesion that we feel like we have. There's really a lot of love here, and I'm impressed. I'm excited to see what season 2 has to offer. I hope they can keep it up. Now, if they fumble, drop the ball, then oh well. But hey, at least we got this. I'm happy to say season 1, Welcome to Derry, is a recommend.
Yeah, it could always take a downturn, I guess, a downward spiral maybe. But we'll see. For me, I think from the character work here from Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise, really rejuvenated that performance and the terror that he brings. A lot of great adult characters. I loved even the core group of kids that we get here. We have to give Rich his flowers real quick. What a
That's
heartbreaking
true.
moment
Yeah,
that was in the series. I think a lot of people are going to talk about that, especially coming out of as this wraps up. That's probably one of the biggest heartbreaking moments in the series thus far. A lot of terrifying stuff. Yeah, some CGI that doesn't work, but I think they brought it in that season finale. So this easy recommend. I'm excited for people to check this out. We're supposed to get 2 more seasons of this. I'm excited about that, but I'm also, Dylan, you mentioned it a little bit earlier in the review where it's like Stephen King properties are prime for TV series because of the world that he opens up. So I'm excited to see what is to come with Welcome to Derry, but I'm also excited to see if they start taking other properties from Stephen King and put them under the microscope and say, well, let's put someone notable in charge of this and let's see what else we get. Let's get a Cycle the Werewolf. Come on, guys.
oh, I'd love it. Hey, save that one for us. Actually, don't do that too soon. We got to make some movies, Luke. But I also got to say we have Carrie with Mike Flanagan again, so we'll see. And we know they've kind of already. I've at least seen on Andy Muschietti's side. I believe he's very much playing into the Mike Flanagan's interpretation of Dick Halloran. So I think that he's got a lot of love for that. So I think they could definitely play symbiotically with each other. But who knows? Maybe Carrie will stand on its own. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, that's gonna wrap us up here, guys. Definitely let us know down below what was some of your favorite parts, spoilery bits, all the blood, guts, and gore. Let us know everything about Welcome to Derry that you enjoyed or didn't like. And yeah, we'll keep it down there, keep it chatting. And yeah, that's gonna wrap us up here. So until next time, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.
Do the hard shit, gonna do it live. Cause Splattercast kick it every day they live. Splattercast, we slash your ass. 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 Splattercast, we slash your ass.